Earlier this week, he was pleading with his Republican colleagues to, quote, avoid abetting the ShamWoW healthcare summit. Today, he reflected on that summit by saying, history will record that in a time of war and recession, this was how the duly elected leaders of the greatest nation on earth spent their day. Let's welcome Representative Thaddeus McCotter back to Happy Hour. Thaddeus, I actually have a ShamWoW here in my hand. Can talk us through this a little bit. I mean, anything positive out of these summit that you saw at all? Give us some nugget of optimism, would you please, Representative?
Well, as an Irish Catholic, I'm not the first person you should check in with for optimism. But the reality that we tend to find is not what I view it as, it's what the public viewed it as. The public rightly viewed this as a 6 to 7 hour infomercial for one side and then joined by Republicans for both sides. It didn't change any minds. They didn't consider it a particularly productive enterprise. And what it did, it was to help undermine and heighten cynicism within the American public about their government. It helped to undermine their sense that they're being governed with their consent. And again, with all the difficulties that you started off with at the beginning of the show about the economy and the jobless recovery, they certainly could have been given a better use of time by their elected representatives.
Representative, let me ask you this. We've hashed this out all day long on both of the networks. Here's a question, though. If they go to reconciliation, if they go to the 50 votes, it's got to go to the Senate. I have a hunch they'll get 50 votes in the Senate. Will it pass the House?
Well, I think you're right, Eric, to go on to now the battle is reconciliation, now that the infomercial is over. And I think that they're making a grave mistake in the House, and I think a lot of Democratic members know it, especially the centrists, to try to use and short-circuit the Senate rules and procedures to pass a major change like this, which I believe would be detrimental to the American people. The public has spoken on this. There are deep divides in principle over this issue, both with the left wing of the Democratic Party and, more importantly, with the public, Republicans and centrist Democrats. This should go out to an election. If they try to jam this through the use of reconciliation or other means, I don't know that the Democrats are going to be able to do in the House. I would hope that they would heed the wishes of their constituents, but in this place, anything is possible, even if it's not desirable.
Representative, we heard Senator Lamar Alexander outline what he said were his 6 good points to fix the system. Tort reform was on it. Health savings accounts was on his list as well. We're not hearing any of that make it through. Why is it that the Democrats are just so intent on pushing their side of the story only?
Well, it's ideological, Tracy. What you're seeing is the Democratic Party the majority of the Democratic Party in Congress wants to see a government-run health care system either incrementally or done immediately. And centrist Democrats, Republicans, and most importantly the public want to see targeted, helpful, incremental reforms that can go in and have a more immediate effect, and if wrong, can be rectified down the road. On top of that, what you're seeing is the sweeping change that the left wing of the Democratic Party wants, which is the gradual ameliorative change, which is what the vast majority of the American public has said that they want. And so we find ourselves in a situation that cannot be bridged simply by taking part of what Republicans like or part of what the left wing of the Democratic Party wants, because in principle, you cannot build policies that will be helpful if you just take a smorgasbord approach to this. We believe that this is about what the healthcare system in the United States looks like as we go into the 21st century for the wellness and prosperity of our citizens. And what we want to do is, with these 6 points and others, is try to show that there's a free market, patient-centered approach that would be much more advantageous to our citizens than having the government run it as if it's 1970.
Representative, one of the problems that most people have with that approach is that people like yourself say that we want free markets, but then when the bailouts come down, if they help our constituents, we might vote somewhat for them sometimes. Same thing with the health care. We see these guys, Republicans and Democrats, start to counter and, I don't know, give and take a little bit on different issues, and next thing we know, we'll end up with these 1,100-page bills written by lobbyists. What's to stop that from happening no matter how this process ends up playing out in the next month or so?
Well, Cody, what's been happening, as you know, is that Republicans and centrist Democrats, and most importantly, again, the public, have been opposed to this. Now, in terms of the 6 points in their approach, this is what is so fundamental. If you go towards a free market, patient-centered wellness system in the United States that empowers people to be consumers of health care, it makes it far harder to ever go back to the concerns that you have, which are inherent in the Democratic left wing's bill. So I would argue that what you saw in the summit, you might have heard different things, but the fundamental principle of disagreement remains. Now, in fairness to you, Cody, I'm sure that you watched most of it with the sound down in Marley on. But take my word for it, there were fundamental differences.
No doubt, major fundamental differences. Representative, what about, just let's turn this a little bit. How did you feel Mr. Obama treated the Republicans at that summit?
Well, I don't think like that. I don't think that matters how we feel or how we take to each other.
Be an observer. Take your congressman hat off for a minute and be an observer.
Well, I don't worry about politicians as an observer. All I worry about is what comes out of it. If they yell at each other, they yell at each other. People are people, people are people. I think we got to have a way to get around this and focus on the issue at hand. So I don't get into the personalities of it particularly.
Representative, we had about a minute left. Is this dead, or are we going to get something? Is health care reform going to go through?
They're going to do everything they can, from Speaker Pelosi to Harry Reid, over in the Senate to President Obama, to try to continue to obstinately ram this through despite the wishes of the American people. And it's going to be an incredible fight, and it's just commenced in earnest.
All right, Congressman McCotter, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Always good to see you.
I see you.